today's discussion entitled Becoming an Entrepreneurial CME Enterprise. And just by way of housekeeping, we do have a full house today, so the phone lines will be muted. So please do submit your questions in the tabbed box in your lower right-hand corner of your GoToMeeting console. We will get to as many questions as we can during the Q&A session at the end. Please do complete the brief survey at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. And finally, we will notify you next week when the on-demand version of this webinar is available at www.dlc-solutions.com. So welcome again. I am your host, Jeremy Lundberg, and I am the CEO of EthosCE Learning Management System. EthosCE is an enterprise-level learning management system that has been specifically designed to streamline and automate the delivery of CME by medical associations, health systems, and academic centers. So getting over to our presentation, over the past few years, the CME community has been faced with significant economic, legal, and regulatory challenges that have changed the landscape of our field. Some organizations have had to shut their doors, while others have managed to survive and, in some cases, flourish. Today, I'm pleased to welcome my friend Dr. Chitra Subramaniam to discuss how she and her colleagues are transforming their Office of CME into an entrepreneurial enterprise. Chitra is the Assistant Director for the Center of Educational Excellence and the Assistant Dean and Director of the Office of Continuing Medical Education at the Duke Clinical Research Institute. Chitra, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeremy. So good afternoon, everyone, and I'm excited to be here. So, thanks for taking the time to participate in the webinar. So hopefully, at the end of it, you have you'll learn something from our experience, and we're happy to share. And of course, if you have any questions or want to continue the dialogue, feel free to contact me and be happy to talk to you. So I actually was looking at the title and I was thinking, maybe I should have said becoming an entrepreneurial CE enterprise, because we have sort of moved from CME to do other things within continuing education or CPD. So just a note there for myself. But so want to quickly share with you, when Jeremy asked me to do this, I thought, what should I say? So I sort of put together a presentation that talks about the reasons why we had to change the way we thought about our little unit here in the grand scheme of Duke, and then some of the things that we thought about and things that we are doing right now that might be helpful for you to think about within your own setting. So just some information about me. I have been at Duke for now almost 3.5–4 years. Seems a long time, but before this, I was at a medical specialty society, and before then, served as an educator in several different areas. I've been in K-12 four-year colleges. I've been in corporate, federal government, pretty much doing human performance improvement training and education. And I have a PhD in instructional technology and then a graduate degree in biomedical informatics. So have special interest in design and development of education technology, and outcomes-based education, of course. So when I came to Duke, we were the Office of CME, and if you could look at this slide here, our CME mission is in there. We used to be with the School of Medicine, physically in the School of Medicine building in one of the traditional CME offices. But now we have moved into what we're calling the Duke Clinical Research Institute under the Center for Educational Excellence, and CME or CE is the backbone of the center. So if you look at what we are trying to do today, What we used to do before was just the CME mission, but now we have a different mission of which CME is a part. CME or CE is a part of what we do. So to really take, we have a bigger scope to translate and disseminate complex research and medical information that might be useful to physician scientists and healthcare workers. So that's where we are today. But how do we get there? I'm hoping to share with you some of that. So just as a background, we are accredited with commendation. We have joint accreditation. So we do quality improvement team-based education there. We offer several different types of credits. We do CEUs, ANCC, ACTE, we're with healthcare executives, social work, lots of different things because our client base has diversified and we're going out and seeking more different types of businesses, so it necessitated that we do this. We are applying for the MOC portfolio program so we can accommodate that as well. So just a summary of data, just what we do. If you look at the 2013 data, we have close to about 11,000 hours of instruction and over 200,000 credits awarded to our program. So that's the scope of our program. And this is just the certification and the credits that we award. So what necessitated a change? We were affected by everything else that all of us in the community are affected with. Just to give you an idea, I used to have, when we were at the School of Medicine, about 9 people in my group. We did the traditional grand rounds. We have directly sponsored activities, which are about, today there are about 140 annual scientific meetings. We do have a joint and co-sponsored group, and we actively seek funding for many of our activities. So that's typically what our portfolio used to look like. And those CME programs supported all the 9 staff, and I used to receive from the School of Medicine $100,000 in support, which I lost 3 years ago. As soon as I came on board, a year later, the School of Medicine decided that they're not going to pay for anything. So today I'm a self-sustaining entity within Duke, and all of the revenues that we generate supports all of my staff, everything that we do, and that definitely is a motivation to think differently. But besides that, the sort of the environment within healthcare, with all the changes that it brought in, also made us think differently, especially if you think of the regulatory needs, the pay for performance, the quality standards and metrics. Traditional CME was not going to work anymore. And the biggest question that I kept repeatedly hearing from people, and even if any of you are in academic medical centers, the biggest question is, what is the value that the CME office brings? And pretty much, even in specialty societies, sometimes we get asked that question. So we didn't have an answer. And yeah, we do traditional CME, but where does that fit with the changes? Of course, we had technology issues. We definitely had to look at how do we expand that. Skills for our and competencies for our staff was we needed to rethink that in order to meet the new demands. And then we also had issues in terms of low motivation overload. There were already a lot of work being done by the staff, as well as within the system. You know, in order for people to participate or be a part of the PI, QI programs that we would propose, low motivation and stress was an issue. And then there was the whole reality, right? I mean, in my role as the assistant dean, I do work with UME, GME, and I have Duke Ahead, which is the Academy for Health Educators, where I'm a part of the advisory executive group. But before, it was low. We were low on the totem pole, and that wasn't something we wanted to be. And we realized that we couldn't really do what we needed to do if we went that way. And then if you look at an organization like Duke, everybody works in silos. So it was really an awareness that we had that, well, how do we connect or how do we become the bridge that connects a lot of these entities that could benefit from what we're doing? So that's the question we started asking. And of course, finances were vulnerable. Duke had huge budget cuts last year and the year before. And like I said, I lost all of the support that I got and continue to not have support to this day. So, and now they see us as a revenue generating office. So of course, we're on our own. So the biggest question was, the $1 million question was in all of this, what is the value of CME in the landscape? And we couldn't really answer it. So we said, well, this is not working for us, and now we're required to generate revenues, and we have to really pay for ourselves. And then the CME landscape is changing. Duke is an organization, and the continuing education that we provide should really have value, and we should be a leader in the community just as we are in other different things. So we decided that either we change, or 5 years down the road, I'm not going to be able to sustain this and really not have a department anymore. So I said, okay, we have to make the change. And one of the things that is my favorite quote from Michelangelo, which is on the screen, is the greatest danger for most of us is that we don't aim too high and we miss it, but it's too low and we reach it. So we're fine. We're a great CME enterprise. We have accreditation with commendation. We're all that, but so what? Now what, right? And the thought was, okay, let's aim high. Let's see how we can get to where we need to be, and see if we can achieve it. So here's how we thought about things. This might be totally different from how you would approach it, but this is our story. I'm really here to tell you our story, and hopefully you will get some pearls from it that you can apply in your own areas. So when we really thought about, okay, what is it that's going on, and really trying to figure out where do we fit in, because when you're an entrepreneurial enterprise and you're thinking like a business, it's the message, it's the way the message is conveyed, and it's the way you carry your message and implement it, and the way you share successes of what you do as a part of your message as well. So in order for us to create that message and really think about what our goals should be and what we needed to do, we needed to think about really the system around us. And if you really look at it, one of the lessons learned was, as a CME enterprise or a CE enterprise, we talk about the translation of knowledge into practice, but we never talk about it in terms of what's really important to healthcare providers today within the ecosystem. So if you think of the healthcare as a business, then there are 3 different aspects to the business. One is the care consumption, the core of which is the patients. The second most important piece is healthcare delivery, which includes all of your providers, your healthcare teams, your caregivers, all of those guys, as well as the purveyors who actually support the delivery of healthcare. And then there's, of course, the big bucket of finances where your payers are involved and the significant impact that finances can have. So the problem that really exists even today is that there is misalignment of all these building blocks within the ecosystem. Sometimes they don't see eye to eye. Sometimes they're not aligned. Many times one doesn't know what the other is doing. There's not enough cohesive, comprehensive sort of a look into what all of this is, and we're missing the connection between all of these because this is what forms the healthcare ecosystem. So then the question we asked was, okay, where do we fit into all of this, and how do we really approach this? So I have been in human performance improvement for several years and done a lot of work on organizational development and learning. And when you take an organization and if you consider healthcare as a business organization, the important thing is to clearly identify what the business needs are, because your business needs is what drives your job needs or your performance needs. So if you take a physician or a healthcare provider and really think about what they need to do in the context of care consumption, care delivery, and the financial implications, then you identify what the needs of the business are. And in order for a physician or a provider to survive within that business, there are specific performance needs. And those performance needs are what drive your learning needs. So if you really look at what we have to do and what kind of things that we need to be involved in, it's both a top-down approach starting from the organization and then bottom up, because once you finish your activities and collect data, it informs your business as well. But notice on the screen that the business needs really, if you go across the screen, it helps you identify your impact objectives. So what are the consequences of this? What is the ROI? What is the LOI, which is the learning impact or impact of learning? It's actually IOL. And then what is the ROI? What's my return on investment? And how can I define that return, and where can I show value and differentiate myself as a provider? Then if you take the application, the performance needs, performance is at a level of application, so that gives you your application objectives. So when somebody learns something, what should they do with this on their job? And then what is the consequence of implementing something on their job and making a difference? And then, of course, when you address the learning objectives and the learning needs, you have learning and confidence. So this is a vicious cycle that everybody goes through. So the key to remember here is you're not an entity by yourself who can continue to do education activities and figure out, that you're valuable. You have to be aligned with the business. You have to be aligned with what's going on in the market, and you have to be aligned with what the needs are in that moment. And this goes with any business. So let's take the healthcare environment, and this is all of our sort of research and understanding of everything we wanted to document and put on paper. So, of course, it's patient-centered. We talk about personalized care. It's not about just one piece or the other, but it's about the process. It's about diagnosis, treatment, management, and then self-management now, and wellness, and there's so many different aspects, and it's the whole process that the patient goes through. And then in terms of the patients, you're not only looking at the demographics and looking at the behavioral, cognitive, social factors that affect the patient, but the physical, mental, and the social well-being of the patient becomes core and important. Now, it's an integrated system. It's all about the experience. It's about the process. It's about the workflow. It's about the business processes. It's about process improvement. So rather than just thinking of it as a clinical outcome or something that's purely clinical and scientific, there is process improvement involved. There are business process reengineering involved. It could be a resource allocation issue. It could be a process improvement issue. So it's a system that if you take a hospital, there's no like a waterfall effect, one after the other. Then you also need to think about micro and macro level issues. And we'll talk about micro and macro level in a bit. And then standardization, accountability, health outcomes, all your regulatory reporting, and all of the incentives now that are going on. We also talk about sustainability. Can we continue these costs? How can we cost effectively do things? And then on top of it, you are required now, the need is to motivate patients to work with them, and then also to turn your learners into lifelong learners. So the concept of teaching and learning, or the science of teaching and learning, has now a significant impact on how we design our education, which I think when I started in CME was not given any emphasis at all. So we said, okay, fine, we now know the different dimensions within the environment where we could create an impact. So what does that really look like, and what does that translate to in terms of our responsibilities and roles that we can be a part of? So we said, well, if you look at this slide over here, the core of what we do is really patient-centered, patient safety. It's evidence of, we need to always think about what is the value of CE and CME and what is the evidence that we can provide about this. And we want to be focused on the patient. And one of our roles is to not only disseminate core knowledge, but also to say there's new knowledge. We want to do research synthesis and apply it to practice. So that's the knowledge piece. But then around it is the whole regulatory maintenance of certification and licensure and all the other things that are important in reporting now. And then there is the quality improvement, lifelong learning. But if you look at the context in which all of this happens, we definitely knew that, okay, in order to address all of these things, we need to look at patient and population outcomes, integration into research and healthcare delivery. We want to address the system needs and talk about continuum of care and things like that. So these are things that we had to sort of put together to even create a plan on where we are going, what we're doing, where we could have some significant impact, and how do we address some of this. If you've done any kind of, business process reengineering, or if you really looked at creating business plans and coming up with a strategy, half the issue is defining the problem and defining where your value is. What is that differentiator? How do you differentiate yourself from other people? What is the value that you bring? And what are the areas in which you can bring value, and what do you focus on? So that's an important question to ask before you launch into any kind of transformation. Then we looked at, okay, we know the systems level, but now let's look at the learner, because the learner has an environment, and the learner is probably the closest one to us as a CE provider, and how could we affect them? And what are the different dimensions of learning and competencies and skill sets and attitudes that we can impact for a learner? So this is a great slide. I actually picked it up from one of the journals, but it clearly indicates what we were trying to say. So you have the learning needs, and then you have the learner's environment. But remember that learning happens within a context, and in order for it to retain, the context has to continue, and there has to be some continuity in the way we address those. So we looked at the context around the learner and the environment, and here are all the different things that influence the learner. So we figured, well, if these things influence the learner and hence affect the way they learn and what they do with their behavior, then we need to be influencing some of these things, and we need to talk about these and see how we could play a role in any of these dimensions. And then, of course, it's influenced by one's own learning abilities and interest in learning, and then the clinical establishments, such as the teaching hospital or the medical schools and others, play a big role in contributing to this. So this was another aspect of not the business but the learner that we looked at. So if you look at the scope of what, I always tell people that there is so much value in what we do. I don't think we have clearly articulated that so far, and hopefully we'll be able to do that really well someday. But I think we also, when we started the transformation and reinventing ourselves, we really had to articulate and teach other people, and I continue to do this within Duke every day, really helping educate people as to why we are an integral part of what they do. So all of these visuals that you see was my attempt to educate people, but I think it captures a lot of where each of us, depending on our strengths, can find areas to reinvent ourselves and to sort of be a part of the whole continuum and all of the stuff that's going on in education. So many of you might, I'm not sure what the participant demographic is, but you might not be in an academic institution like I am. So even if you leave out my little green box where I'm talking about UME, GME, and CME, the two boxes on either side are pretty important, the system needs and then the healthcare delivery. And then the bottom sort of rectangle that talks about the context, which is the disparities, episodic, so the move of healthcare treatment from being episodic to now a lifelong treatment, your relationship with the patients that you have to build, the relationship with caregivers, extended families, patient expectations and demands, and all of that. Look at the number of areas in which you could make an impact. And I think even if we picked one or two and we were successful, and I can tell you that we are not in any every area here where we've just started, and I can share with you some of the stuff we're doing now. But there is significant impact that we can make if we did it well. So thinking about the learner-centered experience, but within the context of this big universe, and identifying specific areas or points at which we can create impact is significant for you to, before you start thinking about a direction, orienting yourself, taking a position, and starting off. With all of this, I think the other issue was that there had to be a whole paradigm shift, because traditional CME doesn't work. Now we're at then we said, okay, if we have to do all of this, so we've identified all these different areas of opportunity, and we've said the healthcare environment or the ecosystem offers us several opportunities to go beyond what we're doing right now. Then what are the core areas that we really have to focus on? And this is what we came up with. So the core is really patient care, but then the dimensions around it are research, quality care, and education. And if you look at the intersections of the circles in the Venn diagram, you can see how the combinations of each give you an outcome. So research and education allow you to disseminate, reinforce, and evaluate what's already existing and what new things we can do. Research and quality care, where your health services research or other areas are, they provide evidence for what needs to be done, and allow for validity of all your processes and methods and data. And then if you look at education and from quality improvement, then we're able to share best practices, implement solutions, and really affect change. So we go through the cycle of inform, assess, implement, and evaluate, which we thought was a message to send out, and also help ourselves understand that we're going through a paradigm shift. So the other area where we felt that there are opportunities was that we said, okay, fine, and we're going beyond traditional CME, and we have the entire health system now to worry about. Then what are the areas that we can really look into? And this is what we came up with. So these are opportunities and challenges, and helps us think differently about what we really need to do, and where are the opportunities for maybe collection of data, maybe for collaboration, maybe for bringing in other people to participate with different expertise, thinking beyond the scope of what we do, and maybe adding new dimensions to our services that we offer. So if you look at if you consider the concentric circles as the healthcare system, and the core is the patient, and you have the provider, then as you go out to the healthcare team, the family caregivers, and then the entire community is now involved because of the size and the scope of now you're looking at populations, community, and health system. There are opportunities for these different types of researches and evaluations and studies that we could also be a part of, that actually inform what we need to be doing, that actually inform continuing education, that actually inform gaps and needs that we might have in order to develop education. So So we realized that, oh wow, there's, we could do patient reported outcomes, we can look at public health, we can do needs assessment, there's data coming from some of the outcomes work that people have done, there's public health and community research that's also there. So the reason why I'm sharing with you all of this is because it helped us, this exercise helped us build our own awareness of, wow, we thought we were this small little group that didn't have much impact, and we're doing this education, but look at all the areas in which we can be a part of. And it opened our minds to thinking big picture and looking at what are different ways in which we can create impact. And like I said, even if even if we could create some difference in one or two areas, it would be great, right? We're going to do it. So stemming from all of this discussion came the whole patient side of things, patient-reported outcomes, and then talking about the whole technology influence on patient behaviors that we also started thinking about. Now, in order for all of this to happen, the question that might pop into your mind is, oh yeah, this is all fine and dandy, but how do I really do this, and how do I implement this, and where do I begin? So where we began is to do this exercise of identifying, where are the areas we could make a difference? What does it really mean? And how do I give an elevator speech to somebody when they ask me, okay, well, what are you doing in your CE enterprise? And then what is the value add that I can communicate with my faculty, my departments, and to the business leads here at Duke that always say, okay, what's the differentiator? Why Duke? Why you guys? And not others. So you have to constantly answer this question and have a speech prepared. So, and this exercise of identifying the various areas where we could influence the community was so important for us. This is also important to send out the message, to educate our staff, to educate others. So it serves a lot of purposes in terms of identifying the need and showing value. So as you can imagine, so when we said, oh, fine, okay, we have all these opportunities, we're going to do this, we're going to try, we're going to not be complacent about it. And of course, the biggest motivator was I needed to generate revenues and have our costs covered and also make a margin. But it didn't go without any problems. It's a paradigm shift. One of the biggest challenges that I have even today is a culture change and the perception that I have to change. And then the biggest time-consuming work for me is the process changes, because you have to function differently as a business. Your turnaround time, your response time, your efficiency, and the quality of work you do within the short period of time is so critical for when you look at it as a business enterprise. So we have to think differently in terms of our processes. We definitely had to integrate ourselves with the rest of the organization. We had issues, no funding from the School of Medicine, and overall general decrease in funding from pharma and others. One of the biggest challenges is the CME staff competencies. We still are dealing with that. Right now, we have said most of our work we are doing either contracting part-time, or we do work for hire most of the time, and that's sort of a part of our process now, and so we've managed our budgets and bids that we do to accommodate that. And then there's always a struggle between, you have existing people who perform certain skill sets, and then there are others who are new, and how do you balance that? Now that we've moved into systems-based projects, the large scope of the project sometimes is complicated, and it hurts us. So we have to look at ways to collaborate, to partner, be more open, and share the wealth, which we're happy to do so. And then we started realizing that if we're going to research there, we need to build some skill set. And then also, nothing is of any value unless I'm able to disseminate outcomes and look at it. So the levels of outcomes we were dealing with became higher. So as we thought about all of these different issues, we sort of made ourselves talk more about an organization that's on the pathway of transforming their CE enterprise, and we called it Transformational CE. We've actually, Dr. Joe Green, who most of you know, he worked with me here as a part-time consultant, and him and I have done several sessions at the Alliance now, talking about the transformation of CE and identifying pathways for these transformations and kinds of things that we have to do. So, so as we went through our research and tried to identify what are the areas we need to focus on and where we need to improve our processes and think differently, these are the pathways that we came up with. So accreditation is key. That's the core to our business. We want to keep that going. That has to remain. And then we needed to think about strategy. You know, how many CME offices really have a business strategic plan? I'm not sure, but we have one for sure, and we have a strategy as well as we have an implementation plan. That is key. And then an assessment and evaluation strategy. How do you actually show that you've done what you're supposed to do? And we are working mostly now, rather than doing simple one-off CMEs, we're looking at opportunities to do more curricular-based education. Faculty development has become key to our success, and the more we develop faculty and help build awareness, the better they support us. Technology is a key part of what we do. We've made significant investments in that, in trying to use any sort of technology solution that will make us more effective. Across the board, looking at organizational efficiencies and effectiveness and making sure that we're publishing and contributing to the profession. One of the key things to remember is to ensure that as you think about these pathways and think about the value you bring, it's important to sort of evaluate how close you are to your organizational goals. Even if you are within a medical specialty society, if you are within a med company or within a hospital, you're within a health system like I am, it's important to align yourself with the goals of the organization, and always when you talk to people, try to map out the relationship and how there is a cause and effect sort of a relationship, and how CE contributes to that goal overall. And those are questions to ask, you know, really, what is the organization goal and how do I fit into this? So now if we think about, okay, if we've identified all of that, so where do we begin? Where do we begin the implementation? So, so for those of you who are familiar with the concepts of knowledge management, and for somebody like me who's been in that area, it's all about, you know, you take education and you take learning, or in a learning health system where we're learning from our mistakes. We're in this vicious cycle of continuous quality improvement. Then what drives that quality improvement, and what drives that TQI, or the total quality improvement and continuous quality improvement in any business organization, whichever way you want to call it? The key is to have systems, processes, resources, and sort of models in place that promote the sharing and exchange of data, information, and knowledge. That's the key. So today, when I go in and I want to make sure that that you know that there's a difference between those three terms. They're not the same. So if there is continuous exchange of the three, and one informs the other, then knowledge is generated, it's used, it's evaluated, then new knowledge is formed, and it sort of goes in this vicious cycle. So when we really think about that piece, then our learners really become powerful knowledge managers. They sort of learn by themselves, and that's where you want them to be. You want them to be self-regulated learners. And how do you create that? And then our role becomes more of a curator or a coach or a facilitator, being a partner in this journey for them. So when you take this concept, then there were 3 different buckets that we really needed to think about. One is the knowledge architecture. What is our overall philosophy? How do we align ourselves? What is our mission? Who's our learner? Who's our target audience? Who are our competitors? What differentiates us? What is our value add? So those kinds of questions you want to ask before you put together a strategy for any kind of change. Then we had to talk about this whole synthesis piece, which is how do you synthesize, how do you translate, and how do you integrate the content and the knowledge that you create into different things that you do, which is where a lot of our curriculum, instruction design, and all of those aspects come into play. But it's taking data, information, and knowledge and all of the learning from it and really synthesizing information and being able to disseminate it. And then we needed to think about the infrastructure, right? So technology tools to support and integrate the dissemination of knowledge, because without technology, you cannot really achieve all of this. And the question you may ask is, did you start all over? Did you? No, we didn't start all over. We had some processes in place already based on some of the traditional CME we were doing. And then I added on some of these concepts, and from the time we started the transformation, we said we have to follow best practices, we have standards of practice, we have to do XYZ things, we have to have some, data integrity and all of that, and we said we're going to lay down processes and we're going to follow them with this whole philosophy in mind. So from this slide, for you to sort of think about which piece of this are your strengths. You might already have some of it. You might want to build some of it, or you might say some of it I can't do right now and I'm not going to be worried about it. But at least to start the right way, which is what our philosophy was. If we're going to change, let's change for the good. Let's change the right way. Let's look at what is the most optimal approach for Duke. Your approach and strategy might be totally different from mine, and that's absolutely fine because it works for you. So we said, at least let's start there. Let's think big picture first, and let's drill down. Let's look at priorities and see what we can and cannot do. But it's a great concept for you to start thinking about the knowledge systems, and really in a learning healthcare system, the core or things that are critically important is data, information, and knowledge. So data is raw data. If I give you my phone number, that's raw data. Information is if I say that 401-1205 is Chitra's desk phone number at Duke, that's information. But when you use the number and you call me and you put it into practice, that's knowledge. So there's the interaction between those 3 dimensions that make up your knowledge system in your learning enterprise. So then we said, okay, if we're going that route, we really need to differentiate what we're going to do. So we've been doing things in the past. We're doing certain things in the present now. But really, where do we need to go, and what do we need to do? So if you look at the present, it's what it is. We do some systems-based education. We do QI. We do interprofessional education. We've expanded our services beyond Duke. We have a lot of partners. But in the future, we do want to have solutions-oriented strategy. So I'll show you the message we currently use now in terms of solutions. And we're reaching out to a lot of stakeholders. We actually we've created a consortium for research and education, have invited people to participate in it. We're building a virtual center for CE studies where we would like to do our dissemination and outcomes research work, and then focus on quality and efficiencies. Now, you might ask me, this is, you have lots of these things, who's doing all the work? We don't have people doing work in all of these different areas. We we have the big picture. That's where we want to go. And one of the consensus and the agreements we have in the leadership team is no matter what we do, we're going to work towards these goals, period. So if it doesn't fit within this philosophy of where we're going, then we're not doing it. So, which has been great for us. And also to communicate this over and over again as many times as possible so the leadership understands and they begin to see that you can create an impact. And then also in the future, we're hoping that there's, social accountability and responsibility as a CE provider. We felt that we have a responsibility and a social obligation to do this and to do it the right way. And this was important because of the culture change issue. The more I'm passionate about it as a leader, the more my peers are, and we talk about this as something we absolutely have to do and something that institution like Duke has to take on and do. The more people realize it's something we're passionate about, and it's good for my staff to hear it every time. So we brought in this whole concept of social responsibility in our business strategy. And then also, as you build the enterprise, then there is the whole learning aspect. Remember, we talked about the learner-centered approach and the context around the learner. But where is the learner now? If you followed educational research and learning theories like I have, we are now in the age of connectivism, and learning happens outside of most of the classrooms and continues to happen outside. And we all learn from our experiences. So we had to change our approach to learning and the types of education that we built. Now, you can ask, is all of your education gone this route? No, but we're slowly transitioning. We have a few products that are this way. We have traditional CME. We have activities that are in between, and so we're transitioning. We have done in different phases. So in order for a learner to sort of survive today, really looking at the future, how people are going to learn and what they're really going to do. This sort of shows where we are thinking about in terms of where we can bring in new competencies, new skill sets, and create new programs that we've never gone into before. So, for example, we now have a program in leadership that we never offered before, that we have partnered with an external, we've sought out partnerships. For people who are already doing things that way already, and reached out to them and said, hey, we would love to do this. Would you want to partner and share the wealth? So, so we're going into more of the revenue share models with a lot of people. Certain areas we're really good at, we are building our own custom learning solutions, but certain areas we're definitely seeking out help. And the gist of this slide is to really help the learner, be more conscious about information literacy and helping them understand their new competencies and being consciously looking for information, making the right connections, validating that information, and creating their own knowledge. So within that knowledge infrastructure that you have seen, several of the learning experiences and tools and technology that we're using is more to bring out some of these competencies in people so that they can learn better. We also use a different model now for our QI activities, and if you've looked at this, the PRISM model, specifically it's related to a therapeutic, diagnostic, or a treatment method, or a specific, when I say product, it's not a commercial product, it's a product or a service within the healthcare system. And then it's relevant, it's interprofessional. We always think about short chunks, multiple sites involved, and it's symbiotic. That means it's mutually beneficial to everybody. And mutually beneficial is pretty important because most of our QI activities now are either Duke Hospital QI gaps or some of our national partners that we work with. We align ourselves with those so that I don't have to sell it. It's mutually beneficial for people to participate and help us with the program. So we identified our gaps, identified areas where we could make an impact. We also identified our strengths and weaknesses. We talked about building new processes and a new way of approach and philosophy. And then we said, okay, so now what? How do you take it to market, and how do you create the awareness and market yourself this way so people understand that you're a different you're a different organization, and you're thinking ahead, and they value what you bring to the table. So I just wanted to share this. I got it from a book. It's called Road to Success, and I can send Jeremy the name of the book. But it talks about how do you really think about a market strategy, and how do you take your products or any of the CME stuff you do or CE stuff or education that you provide. What are the things that you want to look at? You definitely want to look at your market domain at the macro level, at the higher level. We did an extensive analysis of who's out there in the market, who are our competitors, what do they do best, how much money are they making every year. We did a market analysis. And then within your domain of education, who are your competitors? So who are the Duke-like folks who probably compete with what we do? And then going down to the micro level of what are your target segments? What are the areas we're good at? Where do we have the maximum return, retention in our learners? Who's coming back to us all the time? Where do we have, so looking at your specific target audiences and seeing where the potential is there. And then also our growth, risks, and sustainability. Where can we sustain? Does the infrastructure already support some processes and new programs that we would be able to sustain? Are they revenue generating programs so they can live on for a while? So we've really changed our approach to also being, can we build educational custom learning solutions and products that now can live by themselves, because we sell and we market them, and we're sort of a one-stop shop for education, where we can start from basic sciences and go all the way to translation into practice, and do a lot of different types of education, and sell them and have them as products that the thing in addition to CME that we provide. But critical to your success is this little circle here in the center, which actually is your team, is your staff. And we're constantly evaluating our ability to execute and deliver, which I could tell you is the most challenging piece. And then always the need to remain connected, whether it's internal or external. You want to remain connected and up and down the value chain. So you're constantly asking yourself, what is the value I add? What do I differentiate myself by? What is the elevator speech? And how do I tell somebody in the market that what is the value I bring? And how does this connect with what Duke's already doing, and what our external partners are already doing, the external community is doing, or the community needs are, or the goals are. So when you are coming up with a business plan, or trying to transform yourself, reinvent yourself, whatever that might be, or even just to say, okay, if I were to think about the next 3 years, what am I going to do? These are questions to ask and get responses to, and that might lead you to your goals for the next 3 years to 5 years. So we did it on a more serious note to become transformed into this more entrepreneurial stuff. So from all of this, we just had to figure out, okay, before we start all of this and do this, we needed to create the message. So this is our current message. This is what we tell everybody. Who we are within the Center for Educational Excellence. We develop informed solutions that impact patient care. So the word informed solutions is pretty heavy and dense. Solutions is a learning solution. It could be a process improvement solution. It could be a faculty development solution. It could be any solution that helps you improve care, period. And the reason we say it's informed is because we are now into different types of research, gathering data, working with different partners who can give us the data, working with the health system to give us the data that informs the solution that we provide. And hopefully all of our solutions impact patient care. So that's our tagline or our little slogan or message that we carry with us. We did have to identify areas of focus. So what we do certification, we do systems-based QI implementation for quality care, we do custom learning solutions, and we do strategic advising, which is we started this new unit of consulting within Duke, where me and Joe and I reach out to organizations that want to transform, that are looking at ways to do this, and go out and help them. We do a lot of faculty development. We help with curriculum development, lots of different things we do there. Then the question is, which areas are we going to focus on? So we have identified for this year 5 different therapeutic areas, which will be our areas of focus. We're only doing projects in those areas and building our portfolio in those areas. And also, every time we get a project, we evaluate if that fits with our overall mission. Our goal is, does it fit within these therapeutic areas, or are we going to do them or not? And we had to come up with a way in which we wanted to present ourselves and across the continuum, and think about how we're going to deliver this and talk to people about. So sorry about the visual, but this is my little infographic, if I can call it that, on what we actually do, because the question that always comes up is can you just show me visually what you're doing? So so here it is. The most important thing is, so for us, there's a phase 1 and phase 2 for every project. The phase 1 is this whole area of research and collecting the data and really thinking about learning and behavior change and consumption and delivery, and gathering all the information that we need to make an informed decision. And then this piece right here, which is where the education lies, and it has performance and quality improvement, all of the different credits we offer. Now, outlining these 2 are, of course, the Duke mission, the Duke Health System, Duke Medicine mission of, the clinical care, education, research, and quality, and then we have the continuum of learning here with undergraduate, graduate medical education. But that's specific to us, but this is where your opportunity lies, in terms of all these areas that you can impact and what you can do. So this is now our standard visual, so to speak, that we use with all of our partners and tell them where we want to do. Constantly looking at what are resources we need to accomplish our goals. Here, I don't know if we are, we'd be able to achieve all of the resources we need, but we're always looking at it. When are we going to do it? We say the time is now. We just have to start. And what have we done to really get there? We did create a business development strategy. We have revenue targets. We talk about resource allocation, staff development, training, and accountability, which is key. So, so it's ask the question who, what, when, where, which, and how, to really create the message and spread it. So, in a nutshell, now we have increased our revenues over the past year since we started. Extra revenues of about $1.2 million. We've expanded our scope of services to bring in corporate clients. We are the certification provider for all of DoD. I have about 12,000 learners going through our learning management system every year. We provide our learning management system now for people to use across the health system. And we've expanded our services beyond what we would normally do. And we also have some educational products that we are building, and they would be out in the market as products that would self-sustain themselves. So we just learned from, I think, where we were and some of the situations that forced us to think differently. If you ask me, have you done everything? And no, we haven't. But I know for sure that we're on the right path. We have a lot of work to do, but we are seeing small successes, so it's very motivating. And also to share the message that we are different is a great thing. So that's all I got, Jeremy.
Okay. Well, no, that was wonderful, Chitra. Thank you so much for everything that you covered here. I particularly liked your emphasis on having consistent marketing and education messaging about the value of CME, whether it's to internal stakeholders or your external partners, and really baking that mantra into your organizational DNA. So I know that we are up on the hour. So one question you did speak about, where this emphasis of becoming, instead of being a cost center, and you're now being required to be a revenue and profit center. And we're hearing that obviously, across the entire field. Can you talk about, you mentioned revenue sharing, can you talk about some other models that you have found successful? Because we get asked a lot, particularly about subscription CME. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we have revenue share, we have a subscription model. Actually, we are working with the Duke Health System to create a mobile platform for delivery of education, so called the Duke Education Gateway. And through the gateway, one of the strategies is to create a subscription model where for years with the subscription, they would have access to the library of resources and education that we would provide through the gateway. And we do have a couple of programs already within our CME portfolio where there is a subscription fee and you get access to it. This one is in radiology. We have about 470 or so case studies that are available, and you subscribe. It's a $1,200 fee, and you get access to the entire library as long as you are an active subscriber. And that's a very successful program. We have people from outside the country, a lot of international people also participating because it's totally online. And there are 30-minute snippets of cases and followed by expert discussions. That so we just did it very cheaply. They're done and they're recorded. The physician records their own desktop as they're looking through MRIs, and then there is an audio recording of their discussion. It's nothing high-end, but it's a very popular program, and that's a subscription model. We have a couple of others, and then hopefully the Duke Education Gateway would work. And then we also offer services, like our LMS as a service. We offer instructional design, content development services. We work with a group of faculty who are content generators, so we have revenues coming from there. We help departments do some of the logistics and meeting planning and all of that. So we've increased the services we offer and the revenues.
Great. And then two last quick questions. One was, how has the size of your full-time staff changed during this process?
Yeah, so I had used to have 9 people. Now we are 14. We have hired a director of operations, so I'm not involved in operations. And I do business development. I have a business development counterpart, and we've hired for our systems education. So we're now 14, but because of the revenues that we've generated, I have 5 more jobs that are listed to be filled.
Great. And then one last question, and it may be a little bit longer to answer and explain, but one of the audience members was asking to explain in a little bit more detail how you collaborate with associations to provide CE.
So specialty societies?
Yes.
Sure. So I think specialty societies have a special place in the community because of your membership base and you focus in a specific area. So the way we partner mostly with specialty societies is if we have a proposal and they're interested in doing it, most of the time Duke becomes a site for implementation. And then we have access to electronic health records and things like that that you don't have access to. So most of the time it's a partnership there to help take the outcomes that you provide to a different level. We also work with societies in building content. We have, like I said, we have several groups of faculty who work in different therapeutic areas who are our content generators. So sometimes we work with specialty groups to and our faculty work with them to create the content that might be required. And then through our strategic advising, we do a lot of work with societies to help with their measurement and evaluation plan, overall program evaluation, and then we also